How's it going? I'm back again. Danny Colville at Colville Outfitters and Custom Tackle. I wanted to show you another rig where we add some yarn to our soft plastic beads to give it kind of a milking effect, give the bead a little bit more action, which will push a little bit more water, make it look even a little bit more natural, and also will hold some of the more liquidy scents rather than like a smelly jelly that's more pasty. So the yarn will really help kind of work as like a sponge for those liquidy yarns. Liquidy scents. So my yarn of choice is of course going to be our Steelhead Stalker, their glow yarn or their UV yarn, which is definitely by far the best on the market. Everything here that you guys see, you know, the Blood Run tackle, my line of reels, the Colville Precision Reels, the Blood Run tackle floats. Everything that you see is made by fishermen for fishermen, and that's really the difference between your average product that's made in China by an engineer on the shelf versus the stuff we have here in front of us. So Chad from Steelhead Stalkers did an excellent job with the soft plastic beads. He did really good with the yarn. So I'm going to show you now how I'm going to rig up a soft plastic bead with some yarn. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a different style of knot. So the knots that we run for skein on a hurry is going to be it's basically like kind of a chintzy version of an egg loop knot, but you can only use one end of the line rather than having to come back through like a normal egg loop knot. And I've had great luck with this. I never break off, so I don't really find there's any disadvantage to running this knot over other knots. It's quick, it's easy to tie. You could add yarn to your presentation, or you can add smaller soft plastic eggs, or you can add a chain of eggs. So I'll show you a couple different things we can do. So how you tie this knot is you go through the upturned eye of the octopus hook. You come through and you're going to create a loop at the back of the bend of the hook, and you're going to pinch that loop. And then all you're simply going to do is you're going to work your way right up the hook 7 or 8 times, and make sure that when you're wrapping it over the hook, you don't have the wraps cross over or behind each other. You want them to basically go ahead of each other as you're doing this. So now once you have them wrapped, you're going to pinch your wraps, and you're going to take your tag end and you're going to put your tag end through the loop that you created in the beginning, and you're going to kind of hold onto your hook, and you're going to grab your line and kind of pull them all at the same time. It takes a little practice getting used to, but once you get it dialed in, it's pretty simple. Again, give it a little bit of lube in there. Everything works better with lube. Alright, so now I'm straight on from the hook. And what this allows me to do is it allows me to slide this knot up and down and add different things in there. So I'll show you a couple different cool rigs what we can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 12mm amber. This is a size 2 octopus hook that I'm using, by the way. Going to hook my egg like so, pull it up a little bit, and I'm going to grab my Steelhead Stalker glow yarn. Cut a small section of that. You don't need to use a lot of this for this rig. This is just really meant to give it like a milking effect, like it just came out of a fish. So what you're going to do in this situation is, once we have the egg on, what's nice about this knot is you basically grab the top of the knot and you slide it down the shank of the hook, and that creates a gap. That creates a gap where you're able to take your fluorocarbon and create basically like a loop that will come up where you can add different things inside of there. So One of the things I'm going to add right now is I'm going to add this yarn to this. So I'm going to take my UV glow yarn. I'm going to kind of stretch it out, pull it over, and now I'm just going to cinch down that knot. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to pull that knot right up so it reseats itself at the top of the hook. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this yarn and just kind of pull it right over top of the egg. If you can see there, that's pretty much what we're left with. And I'll show you what happens if it gets wet. It creates like a streamlined milking effect. So as this goes, you could just keep pulling little strands off and it'll create kind of like a milking effect as it's going down. And again, you could run this as a tandem rig and it will give the bait a lot of action. The yarn will actually almost give it a little bit of a swimming action, and it will create a different sort of cup shape as this bead is coming down. You're going to get more water that's pushing around this bead. And again, like I said, you could take a little bit of your liquid krill or your mics or whatever your favorite scent is, put it in that yarn, and that yarn is going to really trap a lot of that scent in and hold it. It's really a great rig. I'm also going to show you really quick how to run like a few eggs at once using this same exact technique. So I'm going to slide my Steelhead Stalkers beads off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 8mm Lickum eggs here. And these come in a chain, which is pretty cool. So with these, which is cool, is you can give it kind of like an egg sac type appearance. You know, you could hook 2 or 3 of them on there, or 4 of them, whatever you want. And then again, you got your yarn coming off of it. So now it's looking like a cluster of eggs that's milking really, really nicely. It almost looks like a little cluster of skein coming down. And like I said, if you put some Potski nectar in there, it's going to fish just like an actual chunk of skein. It's going to fish really, really well. If you don't want to use a yarn too, the other cool thing you could do with this rig is you could actually use that same egg loop knot and run the beads through the actual egg loop knot. So if you look how easy, you just pull the yarn, it comes right off here from that egg loop knot. So you got your egg loop knot. What you can do is you could just take your little chain of beads here, pull it right down. You're left with that there. And you can create any kind of cluster like so just by doing that, and that's run through the egg loop knot. So you could even run just 2 eggs or whatever you want to do and leave the hook point exposed at this point. It just popped off on me there, but again, all you do is you just push up on your knot, add these beads in there, tighten down, and you're good to go. So you can create a lot of different presentations. You could put a hunk of yarn on your hook below it if you wanted. Could put a hunk of yarn on there, give it like a milking yarn presentation. You could also add the yarn right into your egg loop knot. And then the last final kind of really cool thing you can do is you could take a soft plastic bait, Typically you're going to want to use something that's a little bit smaller. So you could run that too. So now this looks like a minnow that's going after a bunch of eggs, which is really effective. If you got a bunch of fish that are spawning, sitting around nests and stuff like that, you pass that by them and it's going to flip them right out. I mean, that's a very, very effective technique. And, you know, I just hooked this minnow right through the head of it. You could thread it as well, like I showed earlier. So now you have that rig as well, and that's threaded through with the hook exposed on its back rather than being exposed through the lips. So there's a couple different tandem rigs for you, some different ideas, some stuff that will really flip the fish out. You could also, like I said, if you don't want to run 3 eggs there, pinch them off. You could run 1 egg. You can make it look like there's a fish going after 1 egg with milk coming off of it. There's so many different presentations you could do, guys, and really, really will add to your success. Paying attention here. One other thing I'd like to kind of point out is when you're running these tandem rigs, try to pay attention and make sure that your knot is seated kind of right in the center of the bend of the hook, so you get the best. But you know, as you're stalling your float, what's going to happen is you stall your float and everything is going to move up like this, and you're going to get a presentation that is really second to none. And you know, a couple different offerings, these steelhead or salmon, that they're just going to go absolutely crazy for. So check us out on Facebook or check out the website www.colvilleoutfitters.com. And again, thanks for following.